I went to help my family move into their new place. But when I got there, locked up tight, I called my dad. He was all, "Now we don't need you." Then Mom texted, "We've got this." So I just left, didn't even say anything. A few days later, they were practically begging me to come back. Too late, though. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm Ben, 28, and for most of my life, I've been the one my family turns to when things hit the fan. I'm the problem solver, the reliable one. If something needs doing, especially the heavy lifting kind of stuff, moving, repairs, setting things up, I'm their guy. I never really minded, even though it often felt like they only called when it was convenient for them. It was just my role, you know? Anyway, my parents, Carl and Linda, had been talking about moving for ages. Their old house was always too small, and Carl had been pushing for a bigger place for years. At first, I didn't think they'd actually do it. They weren't exactly known for making big changes, especially money-wise. But then, one day, Mom casually mentioned they'd found a house, the perfect house, and they were buying it. Before I even had time to wrap my head around it, they were already knee-deep in packing boxes and moving plans. I was happy to help, of course. It was a massive undertaking, and I knew they'd need a hand with packing, carrying stuff, and getting everything organized. They're both getting up there in years, and I had the time and energy to spare. So I figured it would be a nice chance to hang out with them, too. But something felt weird about this whole move. I couldn't explain it, but I had this bad feeling in my gut that things weren't gonna be as easy as they'd made it sound. Moving day finally arrived, and I was all set. I'd cleared my schedule, grabbed my tools, and got to their new place early. The last time I'd seen the house was a few weeks earlier, when they were just starting the remodeling. I was really looking forward to seeing how much they'd gotten done. When I pulled up, the first thing that hit me was just how crazy it looked. Boxes were everywhere in the front yard, and the garage door was wide open, showing even more junk piled up inside. It was obvious they hadn't even begun to move in. I figured I'd lend a hand, maybe unpack some of the heavier stuff. But as I walked to the door, something seemed off. It was completely silent. I knocked a few times, maybe they were upstairs or something, but nothing. I knocked again, still nothing. I checked my watch, they should have been up by then, but the house was dead quiet. Feeling kinda awkward, I tried the door, locked. I was totally baffled at that point. They were supposed to be moving in, so why wasn't anyone there? I hung around for a bit, wondering if they'd gone out for breakfast or something. I figured I'd call Dad. His phone rang a few times before he answered. "Hey Dad, it's Ben, I'm here, but the door's locked. Should I wait outside?" He sounded distracted, maybe even a little grumpy. "Oh, we don't need your help today, Ben." I was totally thrown. "What do you mean? I thought you needed help moving that thing." "No, we're good," he said real fast. "Your mom and I got it covered, don't worry about it." That wasn't like him at all. I was so confused. "Wait, are you sure? I drove all the way out here. I even brought tools for the heavy lifting." "We're fine, Ben," he snapped, his voice getting sharper. "Just go home." He paused, and I just stood there, speechless. "Okay," I mumbled, feeling like he just brushed me off. "I'll go then." Click, he hung up. I stood there, phone still in my hand, staring at the house. The whole thing felt weird, you know. It wasn't just the wasted drive, it was how he talked to me. It was like I wasn't even wanted there. It really hurt. We weren't best buds or anything, but I thought we had a pretty good relationship. This had never happened before. I figured I'd give it one last shot. I sent Mom a quick text. "Hey, Dad said you guys were okay with the move, but I came by to help. Everything all right?" I waited a few minutes, checking my watch and pacing in front of their new place. My phone finally buzzed. I grabbed it, hoping for some kind of explanation, maybe even an apology. Mom's message was short, almost icy. "We've got this. Don't worry about it." I just stood there for a long time after reading it, trying to figure out what had just happened. I was there, ready to lend a hand. And both of my parents had flat out told me I wasn't needed. I had no clue why they suddenly didn't want my help, but it stung. It wasn't just that they didn't need me, it was how they brushed me off like I was nothing. My stomach twisted into a knot. I had to do something. I could have waited around, hoping they'd change their minds, but it felt like they were pushing me away. So I did the only thing that felt right. I turned around, got back in my car, and drove off without a word. The whole way home, I couldn't shake this feeling of being dismissed. But the worst part was that they didn't even give me a chance to really help. I'd done everything right. I showed up ready to work, and all I got was the cold shoulder. Weeks went by, and I didn't get a peep from either of them. Truthfully, I didn't reach out either. I had a lot going on upstairs. But that whole situation kept swirling around in my head. Why was I even there if they didn't even want my input? Then a few days later, my mom texted me. "Hey Ben, we could really use your help with unpacking. Can you come over? The house is still a disaster and we need a hand." I reread the text a few times. I knew exactly what I could do. I could have just gone right over, helped them, and acted like everything was totally cool. But something inside me was screaming, no. I just wasn't ready to go back there, not after how they acted towards me. I spent the next few days and a days not sure what to make of it all. I kept staring at that text from my mom, letting the words sink in. We could really use your help with unpacking. Can you come over? The house is still a disaster and we need a hand. It almost felt like they were trying to pretend like none of it ever happened. But how could I just forget what had gone down? How could I just let them get away with treating me like I was invisible? I won't lie, a part of me wanted to just go over, lend a hand, and act like everything was perfectly fine. After all, they were my parents. I'd always been there for them, no matter how crazy they got. But this time, it felt different. They'd taken my time, my energy, and my trust for granted. It wasn't just that they didn't want my help. It really stung the way they just shut me out like I was nothing. It wasn't even that they didn't want me to help them move. I could have handled that if they'd just been honest. But the way they made me feel, so small, like I was a total bother. That coldness, that way they dismissed me, it really hurt. And after that, I had no idea how to even talk to them again. Then that night my dad called. I just stared at my phone for a sec, figuring he'd apologize or at least explain himself. But nope, he was totally different. "Hey, Ben," he said, all flat and emotionless, like our last conversation never happened. "Just wanted to see how you were. Mom and I are still stuck on a few things at the new place. Could you come over tomorrow and give us a hand with the heavy stuff?" It felt like a punch in the gut. He didn't even mention how rude he'd been, how he'd blown me off. When I got there, it was like nothing had ever happened. I took a deep breath, trying to keep it together. "Dad," I said, "why didn't you want my help the other day? Why did you make it seem like you didn't need me?" He paused, and I heard him fidgeting with the phone. "What?" "Oh, come on, Ben. We were just swamped. It's no big deal." No big deal? That's what he thought. I'd driven all that way, spent my morning gearing up to lend a hand, and all I got was the door slammed in my face and a real brush-off. It meant a lot to me, but I kept my mouth shut at first. I figured if I pushed it, I'd just get more of the same defensive crap. So I just stayed quiet for a beat, let the silence hang there. "I don't know if I'm up for this yet, Dad," I finally said, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "You can't just act like I don't even exist and then expect me to jump when you change your mind." His voice started to get that edge to it. "Don't be difficult, Ben. We need you." He was acting like it was no big deal. "Just come over and get the job done." A cold, sharp anger started building up inside me. I wanted to scream at him, tell him exactly what I thought about how they'd been treating me, but I didn't. Instead, I just sighed and said, "I'll think about it." That was the last thing I said before I hung up. The more I thought about it, the heavier their actions felt. It wasn't like they needed my help, more like they wanted it when it was easy for them. They didn't give a crap about how I felt. I was just a tool to them, someone they could call when the work was too much for them. And if I wasn't around, they'd just keep going, wouldn't give it another thought. A day went by, then two, and all I got from them were a few texts here and there asking when I'd be showing up. By then, I was completely fed up. I was always the cleanup crew, the one who kept everything afloat when things went south. But this time, it wasn't just about shifting furniture or unpacking boxes. It was about feeling respected. One night after a killer day at the office, another text popped up from Mom. The usual coming over to help unpack or what? But this time, no automatic sense of duty tugged me towards their house. It was like a wall went up. Her words felt different, like an afterthought, like they expected me to just show up and do their dirty work without a second thought about how they'd treated me. I sat there, phone in my hand, letting the silence sink in. Then finally I typed back, "I don't think I'll be coming over anymore." I stared at those words, reading them again and again. It felt like a done deal. I wasn't going to let myself be a doormat anymore. Nothing for a couple of days. Part of me wondered if they even noticed. Then bam, just when I thought it was over, the texts started rolling in. Mom first, then Dad. It started slow. "Why aren't you answering?" Mom fired off. Then Dad jumped in. "You're being ridiculous, Ben. Just come help." And then, "We really need you here, Ben. Don't make us beg." I couldn't believe it. After everything after. After all the crap they'd thrown my way, suddenly they were begging. Seriously, they wanted me now? I just stared at those texts for ages. A part of me, a weak part, wanted to run right over there and prove I could still be that guy, the one they always leaned on, even after everything. But another part, the bruised, battered part of me, the part they'd ignored and insulted, wasn't feeling too forgiving. Not this time. It felt like another one of their manipulative games. They figured since I'd always been there for them, I'd drop everything the second they called. But I wasn't so sure I wanted to be their go-to guy anymore. It was crazy how fast things changed. My whole life, I was the one doing everything. I was the one rescuing them, cleaning up their messes, always forgiving, always making excuses. But somewhere along the line, I started to wonder if they saw me more as a spare tire than a son, something handy to use and toss aside. I could hear the desperation in those texts, and it really hurt. The same people who'd pushed me away, who'd said I was useless, were suddenly desperate for my help. It wasn't just about their problems anymore. It was about them only caring when they needed something from me. I was starting to see, for the very first time, that I could actually stop them from doing this to me. But that didn't mean I was gonna make it easy for them. I didn't text them back right away. I just sat there, thinking about it for a while. It felt great to be in control, for once, instead of rushing to fix everything like I always did. But as much as I was hurting, I knew I couldn't just leave it at that. I needed them to get what it felt like being pushed aside, treated like I was an afterthought until they needed something. They had to learn that I wasn't always going to be their fallback, that I deserved more than what I'd been getting. The next day, my mom called. The tone was the same as in those texts, urgent and almost begging. "Ben," she said, sounding frustrated, "you have to come help us. The place is a mess. We're totally swamped and we can't manage without you, please." I let it ring for a second, not answering. I wanted her to stew in the silence for a bit, just like I had to. I wanted her to understand how I felt when they'd ignored me that morning, when they'd told me they didn't need me. After a few rings, I finally answered. "Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm, "I'm not coming over, not today. Not unless you're ready to really talk about how you've been treating me." There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. I could practically feel her mind racing, trying to process my refusal. It was so unusual for me to say no. Usually, I was the reliable one, the guy who jumped whenever they needed something. "Ben, please," she pleaded, her voice softening. "We're in a real bind. It's not just the boxes. We need you with everything. I can't do this without you. Just come by for an hour and then you can go if you want. We can talk, okay?" I could hear the panic in her voice and a wave of guilt washed over me. But I knew this wasn't just about helping them move. It was about something more significant, something I hadn't truly let myself acknowledge until now. It was about teaching them a lesson. It was about finally standing up for myself. "I'm not coming over," I repeated, my voice steadier this time. "Not unless you can admit what you did. I need you to understand how much you hurt me, how you made me feel like I was worthless when I showed up. You can't treat me like that and just expect me to brush it off. Not anymore." There was a long pause, and for a second I thought she'd hang up. But then she spoke, her voice even softer now. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Ben. We just didn't think. Things got crazy and we—" "Exactly," I cut her off. "You didn't think, you never do. You just take, and when I finally say no, you act like I'm the one being difficult." I let the silence hang between us. I wanted her to get it, to really understand what I was saying. She had to see that I wasn't always going to be the one fixing everything. "I'm sorry you feel that way," she said at last, but it didn't ring true. It sounded like she just wanted to make things better, hoping I'd give in, but I wasn't budging. "I'll think about it," I said before hanging up. The next few days were pretty mellow. My folks weren't reaching out much, and I wasn't either. It was weird not talking to them, but it also felt good. I didn't feel like I was under their thumb anymore. I wasn't just the guy who cleaned up their messes, and as time went on, I started to wonder if they even noticed the space I was putting between us. Then, about a week later, I got another text from my dad. It was short, like the rest, but this one hit different. "Ben, we've hit a wall. Can you come over and help? It's getting pretty bad here, and we really need you, please." At that point, I was over the emotional crap. They were trying to lay a guilt trip on me, trying to trick me back into the role they'd always given me. But I wasn't going to fall for it, not this time. I took my time before replying. When I finally did, I made it crystal clear how things were going to be from then on. "I'll help you. When you start treating me like an equal, when you stop using me only when it's easy for you, I won't just come running anymore." Honestly, I wasn't expecting them to get it right away. They just hadn't figured things out yet. But it was crucial for me that they understood this was about more than just me helping them out. It was about having some respect. It was about me finally sticking up for myself. Hours ticked by after I sent that last message, and I didn't hear anything back right away. Part of me figured my parents would give up, just keep on with their usual game of acting like everything was all good until they needed something from me again. But that's not how it played out. Later that night, I got a text from my mom. When I saw the notification, a weird calmness washed over me. It wasn't a desperate cry for help like the other times. It wasn't an apology or a promise to do better. Nope, it was worse. "We'll just have to manage without you. Your dad and I are tired of trying to reach you. Maybe you don't care about us anymore, but we have enough to deal with." It was like they totally missed the point, that they'd made me feel like I was worthless for ages. And now that I was finally standing my ground, they couldn't handle it. It was the ultimate mind game. They were spinning the story, making it seem like I was the problem, when really they'd pushed me to the breaking point. I just stared at the screen for a while, letting those words sink in. At first, I thought about firing back a sharp text, something that would show them just how frustrated I was. It hit me then I didn't have to answer right away. I didn't have to play their stupid games anymore. Walking away felt right for once. So I just didn't reply. I put my phone down, got up, and did something else. I needed to clear my head, you know? After everything, I couldn't just let them get away with it. They needed to learn that I wasn't their backup plan anymore. I had to stand my ground. 2 days later, my dad called. I almost didn't answer, but figured it might be important. It wasn't. "Ben," he started, all strained, "we've been waiting on you. We're so behind on unpacking, it's a disaster. Please just come help." He sounded so worn out, like it was all my fault he couldn't handle it. Anger boiled up, but I kept it down. I knew what I had to do. I was so sick of being used. "Dad," I said, keeping my voice steady, "you've treated me like dirt for weeks. I'm not just gonna pop over whenever you want. I'm not your last resort anymore. I've always been there for you, and every time I get ignored or pushed aside, I'm done." I could hear him trying to talk over me, but I wasn't letting him. "I don't think you understand how hard it's been on me too," he mumbled. "You expect me to just ditch everything like I'm some kind of replaceable object. Nope, not gonna happen. You can figure it out yourself, just like you've been telling me I could." There was a pause on the phone, and for a split second I thought maybe he'd finally get it, but his words instantly showed me nothing had changed. "Okay, Ben, if that's how you want it, we don't need you." It was the same old song and dance they always did when they were trying to guilt-trip me for sticking up for myself, but not this time. I wasn't falling for it anymore. I just hung up, no reply. That was the last time I spoke to them for a while. They left me alone for a few days, and honestly, I felt a lot lighter. But it didn't stay peaceful for long. After about a week of nothing, I got a call from my cousin Lucy, who I hadn't talked to in ages. We weren't exactly best friends, but I knew her. She worked with my folks at their company, and we were cool. "Ben," she said, her voice kind of shaky but serious, "I hate to do this, but your mom and dad are totally freaking out. They're in way too deep with this move, and they're not asking anyone for help. They've been trying to handle everything on their own, and now they're stuck. They're too stubborn to ask you, but trust me, they're getting desperate." Honestly, a part of me was kind of pleased. Finding out they'd pushed me away and were now in a tight spot. It felt a little like karma, but as Lucy kept talking, I saw what was really going on. She wasn't calling to gloat about my folks screwing up. It was all about making me feel guilty so I'd lend a hand. "They're not doing well, Ben. They really need you," Lucy said. "Could you maybe drop by for a couple hours and help them with the heavy stuff?" I took a beat before answering. I knew Lucy wasn't trying to mess with me the same way my parents always did, but it still felt like I was being sucked back into the same old drama. I wasn't going to give in this time. They needed to deal with the results of what they'd done. "No, Lucy," I finally said, my voice stronger than I'd felt in ages. "They made their choices. They acted like I didn't matter. They can't just turn around and expect me to bail them out now that they want something. They've been pushing me away for way too long." There was a long, awkward silence on the other end. "I understand," Lucy said softly, and I could tell she wasn't really sure what to do, but she didn't push me further. I hung up and felt like I was finally done. Days went by. I stayed away from my parents and just kept living my life without their constant requests. And for once, I didn't feel bad about it. For the first time, I finally understood I didn't have to kill myself for their benefit. And that was something a simple move unexpectedly taught me. Later, I heard from my mom. It wasn't the usual "we need you" demand. This time it was softer, like they finally got it that they'd gone too far. She wrote, "Ben, we screwed up. We're sorry for how we treated you. We never wanted to make you feel like nothing." I could tell she was trying, but it felt like it was way too late. The harm had already been done. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. They'd made their choices. They'd taken advantage of me for ages, and now they were finally facing the consequences. They got a tough lesson, but I wasn't going to make it easy for them. They actually did finish unpacking the house without me, but I wasn't there to lend a hand. After that message, they didn't reach out again. I didn't know if they were genuinely sorry or just humiliated, but it didn't matter. I'd learned to stand up for myself, and I wasn't going to let them treat me like that anymore. As for me, I moved on. It wasn't a walk in the park, but it was worth it. I realized that family isn't about who's most convenient when you need them. It's about respect. And I wasn't going to let anyone treat me like I was worthless again.